Welcome, everyone. My name is Amber Sharples. I'm the Executive Director of the Oklahoma Arts Council, and I want to thank all of you for attending. I realize that in this current environment, carving out time and making space for these conversations, we know that you are you have a lot of things on your plate as you're trying to shift and pivot in response to the pandemic, both as organizations and in your work. And so we really appreciate this opportunity, hopefully to have a good conversation. We hope for today's initial call with our major grant support grantees, that we hope that this will be a great opportunity for us to give you just an update on the Oklahoma Arts Council's initial response to the pandemic. We want to provide you with resources and spaces for you to find up-to-date information that we're constantly adding, not only to our website, but to other resources. We also are going to be talking today about updating and our revised grant criteria that we hope you will find that this provides a space to be more flexible and responsive to you as grantees and in your programming in response to this pandemic and its impact on your plans for the remainder of this fiscal year. And then we also hope that we can facilitate a safe space for you to share your innovation, your barriers, and the ways that you can provide support to one another and help guide us as to how we can be more responsive to the needs that you'll need in this ever-changing space. I want to first recognize our council member, Ann Neal, our chair of our board, who is hopefully going to join us for part of the call. And then our staff. I want to briefly just introduce the staff that's on the phone call as part of our team. Chandra Boyd, our deputy director, Molly O'Connor, our assistant director, Joel Gavin, our director of marketing and communications, Thomas Tran, grants director, Heidi Costello, grants programs assistant, Yakim Guliat, cultural development director, and then Kayla Lewis, our community arts director. This is just about half of our team, but the key individuals that we hope will provide support to you in this space. So thank you again today. I'll be giving an update on the state and federal updates that we have. But before we do that, I want to go ahead and shift to Chandra Boyd, our deputy director, to give an overview of the format and what we're hoping to accomplish today. Chandra?
Thanks, Amber, and good afternoon, everyone. We hope you're doing well, and we really appreciate your time today. I just want to briefly go over the agenda. Thomas, if we can advance to that. So just to give you an idea of our format for today, we will have an update from Amber, as she mentioned. Thomas will be providing those updates as they relate to your FY20 major grant support. Joel Gavin will be providing information about the resources that we've made available on our website. And then following that, we'll break out into groups, breakout rooms, and we'll go over that a little bit more in a bit. But providing a space for you all to have that discussion with your peers and colleagues. And we'll be facilitating that with the rest of our staff. So more to come there. Just a bit of housekeeping. So all participants will be muted during this portion of the presentation. If you have any questions, there is a chat bar. If you want to enter your questions there, we'll be monitoring that and answering that as best we can. If for any reason that starts to run long or we can't get to all the questions on this call, we'll make sure that we follow up with you all directly. And we also will be sending you a recording of this meeting so that you'll have that for your records. I think that's all I'm going to talk about right now, and then we'll provide a little bit more information during the breakout session. So Amber, back to you.
Still muted. Hold on just a second. All right, I think I'm back on. Just as an agency update, just quickly, effective Monday, March 16th, our entire staff moved into full-time telework status, and our physical office was closed at that time. We will remain in this status until we determine, as our agency leadership, as we determine what is safe for both our staff and our constituents and our grantees. And also we will be doing this in terms of constantly staying in touch with state and health officials. While our office space is closed, we have been working very hard as a team that our email and phone numbers on our website and our resource page are all working. We know that while we might not be centralized in a physical space that you can come and interact with us, we definitely want to hear from you, and we are trying, tirelessly to respond to the needs that you may have. So please call our staff, please engage with us. We want to be a resource for you as you're trying to navigate this new unprecedented experience. If you send us something via mail, snail mail or FedEx or priority mail, it may be delayed in getting to us. In fact, I'm the one who's going to our physical space and picking up our mail, and I'm doing that as infrequently as I need to, just for safety. Hard copy checks of your grant payments, if you do not have EFT, those will be picked up about 1 or 2 times a week from the state's mail center by me, and then I'm then processing those. So I just know that, just want to make that clear, that that may impact payments getting to you, and those might be delayed. And if you have any issues with that, please let us know. I want to shift to a federal update. We will be sending out, hopefully today or over the weekend or early next week, information about the stimulus package number 3, the direct opportunity to apply to the National Endowment for federal support. If you have been a past direct National Endowment for the Arts grant recipient in the last period of 4 years, and we'll get this information out, you will be eligible to apply directly to the National Endowment for a portion of the stimulus funding that they received in the stimulus package number 3. They received $75 million as part of the stimulus package. In that stimulus package, there was a provision that stated that 40% of those funds must be distributed to regional and state arts agencies. We just found out that we are receiving close to $450,000. We just got that notification from the National Endowment to then re-grant out to help in response to the pandemic. We literally just got these guidelines from the National Endowment. So what we will do is we will regroup, develop a plan of action and guidelines in response to what we are being given from the National Endowment for the parameters of those funds. And then we will have to have that approved by our Oklahoma Arts Council Board, our governing body. Currently, since we did receive this notification, we are working with the Oklahoma Humanities to develop a plan of action and to have strong communication between our 2 agencies, as Oklahoma Humanities also received a portion of stimulus funding for redistribution across the state for humanities-based organizations from the National Endowment for the Humanities. So we'll be working in tandem with them, and we are working as fast as we can to be responsive. The earliest that we can receive these funds from the National Endowment is near the end of this month, and it looks like we would be trying to expedite this getting out within the next 2 months, with an approval at our June council meeting is most likely. We're continuing to watch the additional stimulus package number 4 that is currently being negotiated on the federal level in Congress, and looking to see if there may or may not be additional support for the arts or for artists, independent consultants, etc. And as we see that information coming through, we will work very hard with the Oklahoma Center for Nonprofits to help get that information and resources out to you. We will be following up with this phone call with additional resources that have been offered by the Oklahoma Center for Nonprofits for the additional federal resources that support the general nonprofit sector that were part of the 3rd stimulus package. This includes the U.S. Small Business Administration resources and grants/loans to nonprofits and other information regarding unemployment benefits, etc. Joel Gavin, our Director of Marketing and Communications, will speak a little later in our meeting today about our agency's resource page and where we're trying to keep up to date and new information that is very timely to be a resource for you. And part of that information from the federal package is already on our website, so I'm definitely not going to steal his thunder. I want to shift now to the state update. I don't know if you've seen in the news, but this current week that we're in, as we're finishing up, has been quite a busy week at the state capitol. The governor called a special session that started on Monday, and this was in response to the current budget shortfall in our current fiscal year 2020 that the state is experiencing. We have a more than $400 million shortfall for this current fiscal year. This is in due to the oil and gas. Obviously, the the loss of economic impact, income, excuse me, and revenue from oil and gas, as well as the impact of the pandemic on our economy. On Monday, the legislature was pulled together and they passed a few bills and gave some powers to the governor. First, they gave unprecedented powers to the governor and triggered the Catastrophic Health Emergency Powers Act, which has not ever been triggered since its passing in 2003. This gives the governor some real flexibility in order to respond to the health pandemic. The House and the Senate also overwhelmingly passed 3 bills to tap into the rainy day fund to cover this multi-million-dollar shortfall for state agencies. The Board of Equalization was required to meet to declare the revenue failure, which would help to trigger how these bills would then help the state tap into the rainy day fund. The governor ended up canceling that meeting on Monday. It was actually supposed to be rescheduled for today, which it was canceled. And so there's been a little bit of tension between the legislature and the governor in what was included in those 3 bills. The governor had 8 days to sign the bill from the time that it was passed, and that deadline is actually Saturday, tomorrow night at midnight. And there is some tension and different ideas about whether or not those bills will become law if Governor Stitt does not act. One of the reasons why the governor has not automatically signed all 3 bills is because he was not pleased that his digital transformation fund was not fully funded in the bill. There was some tension between the legislature and the governor as to whether those funds needed to be part of the shortfall coverage. So just today, there was an article in eCapital stating that the governor has signed 2 of the 3 bills that lawmakers passed earlier this week to help with the revenue shortfall. However, he did not sign the bill that transfers the largest amount of money into the rainy day fund, and he urged the legislature to return to the Capitol to fully fund the last 2 months of the fiscal year. So in essence, the 2 bills that he did sign will help cover the shortfall just for the month of April, but May and June are still, there's some discrepancy as to whether or not if the last bill will automatically become law if he doesn't sign it, or if the fact that the Board of Equalization did not meet to officially declare a revenue shortfall, whether or not that will then impact whether or not that bill truly does become law. So we will continue to watch that, because if that revenue shortfall does not cover the last 2 months, we have been notified by the Office of Management and Enterprise Services, which is literally the state's budget office, that they will have insufficient funds to make May agency allocations as well as June. And this would trigger a revenue failure that would require across-the-board cuts to state agencies, including ours. So we will keep you up to date on that. And we just hope and pray that we see resolution between the legislature and the governor to fill that budget shortfall. I'm going to shift now and just talk about a couple of ways that our agency is trying to be responsive to the pandemic. Our agency is leading some statewide arts, cultural, humanities, and history sector leaders with the Lieutenant Governor. We had our first call on March 26th, and our second call was yesterday. And this is a convening of our entities and leadership of major organizations such as the Oklahoma Museums Association and others that are doing work across the state and supporting your work through services, etc. We're meeting every 2 weeks, and we're creating working groups to hopefully tackle various issues such as messaging, information distribution, as we know you're getting an onslaught of information. And then the Lieutenant Governor and his staff are participating and listening in on this call. And so this is really important that he is continuing to hear from the more than 20 leaders on these statewide entities from both the public, private, and philanthropic sectors about how we're trying to respond to the pandemic and keep all of your work, give you the tools to help you navigate this very new environment. Second, grantee flexibility. We worked very closely when the pandemic really hit to work with the Attorney General's office to seek counsel on how our agency had the authority to revise our grant criteria to be responsive to the pandemic and to you. We also worked with the National Endowment and looked at our federal funding constraints. And with the information that we received from both parties, we then developed as a team revised grant criteria that we hope is responsive, which Thomas will be talking about, Thomas Tran, our grants director, in more detail. But we did call an emergency meeting of our council's executive committee that met on Friday, March 27th, to approve these revised criteria. We hope that these will help with cash flow, reduce the matching fund requirements. We know that you're losing revenue from multiple sources. We're wanting to be more responsive to virtual content delivery, as we know that you can't provide in-person gatherings and programmatic delivery. And we will want to continue to encourage you to pay artists for their work, even if you are pivoting into the virtual platform space. We will continue to have grantee meetings. Today is our second. We had our organizational support grantee meeting just about a week ago. We're going to have an arts education forum and then our small grant support as we continue in the next couple of weeks. Just so you know, we will be dispersing to this party information about our open meetings. We did, the legislature, when the pandemic was starting to really emerge, and they saw the implications of in-person gatherings and potential board meetings, they did pass Senate Bill 661. This provides temporary flexibility, and it makes it more lenient due to the pandemic for governing boards to meet in a virtual, more video conferencing platform. We will be sending some information out as best practices in response to that. Things that you should do, such as having your votes done by a roll call, etc., versus just yay and nay over the phone or in video teleconferencing format. Those will be distributed to you post this meeting. So I'll be happy to answer any questions, or I can answer them later, but that is an update on the federal and state level. So I appreciate everyone.
All right, Thomas.
All right. Hello, everyone. This is Thomas Tran, Grants Director here at Oklahoma Arts Council. I'm so glad to be here with you all today, and I just want to take a minute to quickly echo what Amber has said. This is really an unprecedented and extremely difficult time for everyone. All of us here at Oklahoma Arts Council recognize the significant impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and its effect on nonprofit arts and cultural organizations, as well as schools and universities across the state. And we hear and see about postponed programs and canceled events daily. So we just want to make sure that you know that we are here and we're always thinking of you, and we're doing everything that we can to help and support you during this difficult time. So today I'm going to be covering some updates to our fiscal year 2020 grants. And I do apologize if there's some delay. I'm trying to work the slideshow and talk at the same time. Let me see here. So what I will be going over today includes updates to our fiscal year 2020 grants. That's all of our awarded projects that are taking place right now through June 30th, 2020. We will go over our revised grant program criteria and the COVID-19 impact report. So in response to the anticipated challenges and impact of the pandemic, our staff and our governor-appointed board have worked together to explore some ways in which we can shift our grant making to reflect this new environment that we're in and that the nonprofit sector is operating in. We have consulted with the NEA, as Amber has mentioned, the National Endowment for the Arts, as well as the Oklahoma Attorney General Council, to see what we are able to do within compliance of the state constitution and within the terms of our own National Endowment for the Arts partnership grant. So our first revision to your grants for this fiscal year is a change in the grant program criteria. The first revision is the change in a match requirement for the major grant support program. We are changing the one-to-one cash-only match requirement that is currently in place to a new one-to-one match requirement with 50% of the match being cash, and the remaining 50% of the match may be in-kind support. What this means is that we are reducing the dollar for dollar match requirements for your fiscal year 2020 grant award. For example, if you are receiving $6,000 in Oklahoma Arts Council grant funds for your project, in your final report, you will have to show that you have at least $3,000 in cash, whether it be organizational funds, private donations, or other types of revenue or reserves. And the change is that the remaining 50% of your cash, of your cash match, may be in-kind support. So we define in-kind support as the fair market value for donated non-monetary goods or services. Hopefully this will allow some flexibility as you may be anticipating a cash flow issues surrounding the pandemic. And in this way, we can better utilize the other forms of support that your organization is receiving, and as well as meeting the eligibility criteria for our grant funding one-to-one cash match. The second revision that we are amending is our approved uses criteria to include costs associated with the planning and delivery of virtual programming and content. Organizations across the state are beginning to adapt to this new environment and shifting their work to the virtual space, whether it be online, on Facebook, Instagram TV, or YouTube. There's some really great innovation going on, and we want to ensure that you, our grantees, are able to utilize OAC funding to support your programming during this time. You may utilize your grant funds to support all previously allowed expenses, in addition to costs associated with the planning and delivery of virtual content. You are also encouraged to utilize OAC funds to support the payments of working artists and contracting arts professionals who are part of your project. As a staff, we're researching best practices and models for delivering virtual content and programming while maintaining to financially support artists and arts professionals. We believe that organizations should remain committed to appropriately compensating artists for their work. So Oklahoma Arts Council will be releasing additional information in the coming weeks to guide the arts sector on how to financially support organizational operations as well as arts professionals in this new space. I'm going to pass the mic over to Joel Gavin, our Marketing and Communications Director, really quickly to talk about acknowledgements of Oklahoma Arts Council and National Endowment for the Arts support in this new virtual space.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Thomas. So Thomas mentioned our ability, our hopes to be able to support programs that are moving to a virtual online delivery. And so as this is, as organizations are quickly adapting to this, and just with the prevalence of social media and as things are changing, the Oklahoma Arts Council is, we are updating our acknowledgement requirements accordingly. And so I just want to bring your attention to the fact that we will be providing an updated guide for acknowledging Oklahoma Arts Council support of your programs. So be on the lookout for that. Specifically, we just want you to be mindful in the social space, whether it's a Facebook event or posts on Twitter or Facebook about programs, your programs that are supported by the Oklahoma Arts Council. To be mindful of tagging us in those and just letting your audiences, just bringing in awareness of our support and how it enables, empowers organizations statewide to bring arts programming and quality of life and all the benefits of the arts to people in Oklahoma. So again, we will be sending those out in the coming days, and you'll just be mindful of that. And there'll be some further guidance with regard to when you are delivering programming on the virtual space in those acknowledgements guide as well. So I'm going to return it back to Thomas.
All right, thank you, Joel. So next we will move on to talking about our fiscal year 2020 grants. Again, these are grants that are for programs already occurring and in session and ending before June 30th, 2020. So Oklahoma Arts Council recognizes that you may have had to modify, postpone, or cancel your projects that are currently supported by OAC funds due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Due to the nature of project-based funding and the terms of our grant contracts, we must record any changes that take place to your funded project. We're anticipating some different changes that include changes to your project dates, any project modifications to shift towards an online and virtual delivery, and some project cancellations as well. And I will go over these in depth as we go through the process in which to make these changes. One note on the project cancellations, as Amber referred to before, after we have consulted with the National Endowment for the Arts and the State of Oklahoma Attorney General Counsel, Oklahoma Arts Council has confirmed that both federal funding guidelines and the state constitution separately mandate that grant funding from OAC can only be used to support services that are rendered. So what this means is that Oklahoma Arts Council cannot use funds to support projects that are undelivered, services that are undelivered, or canceled services. However, it is allowable for Oklahoma Arts Council funds to support partial payments for services provided up to the cancellation of the service. So what this means is that if you have an event and you unfortunately had to cancel the event due to the pandemic, if there was work going on before the event took place, if there was any planning taking place, if you have teaching artists that put in the time to develop curriculum and provide a class structure, if you spent administrative time to put into planning the project, if you purchase supplies, eligible supplies for the project, then these are still allowable funds and you may still complete your final reports and try to get that grant money. But for anything that happens after your cancellation dates, unfortunately, our funds cannot be used to support events and services that did not happen. So moving to the COVID-19 impacts report, our staff has developed this impacts report as a response to the requirement that we report on any changes that are made to your initially accepted grant award. So this report will satisfy the contractual needs of notifying Oklahoma Arts Council of your program changes. It'll inform us of the status of your projects, and it'll collect some information so that we know how this pandemic is impacting your organization, your community, and overall the arts in Oklahoma. So this COVID-19 impacts report is an online form that will be emailed to your organization's grant contact, and we'll make sure that it'll be dispersed in other means as well. This form, again, will be emailed out to you, and what you see on your screen is a screenshot. So I will walk you through the form and tell you about each section, what we're asking for, as well as some detail into what the form is going towards. So first, we will be collecting your contact information, and this is just so that we can get some updated information on who's submitting the form. And then in case you have moved offices or you're working from home, this collects new email and phone number information so that we have a better point of contact with you. The next section is for project information. So one note, we do ask that you will submit an impacts report for every project that has been impacted by the pandemic. So for example, if you have 3 projects that were canceled or postponed or were just impacted by the pandemic, we ask that you send in this form 3 different times for each project. So under project information, this is where you'll first indicate what grant program that you're receiving funds under. So for you, it'll be major grant support. And then you'll enter your project ID number. This is the unique 4-digit ID number that is assigned to each project. And this number is available through the grant system as well as in your original award notification, and grant contract. The next section asks for project change. And this is where you'll select the changes that are occurring in your project. So the first option is my project will occur in fiscal year 20, but the dates will change. This is notifying us that you are just changing the dates of your project. The second option, my project will occur in fiscal year 20, but it will be held online or delivered through virtual means. So your project is still happening, but you are adapting it to move on to the online space. The third option is my project will occur in fiscal year 20. The dates will change and it will be held online or delivered through virtual means. This is a combination of the two options before, stating that your project will now occur on different dates and it will be delivered online. The fourth option is my project is canceled for fiscal year 20, but will be rescheduled for July 1, 2020. So in choosing this option, this means that your project will not happen in this fiscal year, but you're planning on rescheduling the project for later on in the year. If you select this option, please know that you do have the ability to complete a final report and claim any expenses that you have incurred before the cancellation of the project. So again, this is referring to any services that have been rendered before you canceled the project. And by selecting this option, our staff will then reach out to you for more information and to provide you with next steps. The last option in this section is my project is canceled and will not be rescheduled. So this means that your project is not happening anymore and you do not plan on the project taking place. This option, please, as well as the previous one, will allow you to claim any expenses that you've incurred. And again, our staff will reach out to you for more information and we will be in contact. The next section of the form is for you to report any of those changes that you stated before. If these are not applicable, then you can skip through these questions. The first is if your project will not occur in fiscal year 20, but the dates will change, what are the new dates? So this is where you'll state your new project dates for us, and this is how we will amend your grant contracts. The next section asks for online and or virtual programming delivery. So in an effort to support programs during the pandemic, the grant program criteria was revised, as we discussed before, to accommodate for online or virtual programming. So this is the area where you can tell us how you'll be adapting your programming and what changes you'll be making to your proposed projects in order to deliver your programming online. So this is a narrative field that you can complete. And that concludes the projects reporting portion of that form. If you have any questions, feel free to contact our grants office. You can type in a question in the chat box and we'll get back to you, or you can send us an email or give us a call later and we can respond to your questions. The last part of the impact report is the impact survey. So these are questions to help us inform state leaders about the impact of COVID-19 on the arts industry and arts community in the state. All of the responses that you provide to these questions will not impact or affect your grant funding. So the first question here is, please estimate the total decrease in individuals served as a result of rescheduling or canceling your project. So we know that you might not have an exact amount, but we're just asking for your best estimate. How many people would your program have served, but it is now canceled? The next question is only applicable to some projects, but we ask for you to estimate how much your organization's earned income and revenue has decreased as a result of rescheduling or canceling this project. Again, you may not have exact figures, but how much did you anticipate in revenue or in any additional funds that were lost due to the cancellation of your project? Question number 12, please estimate how much your organization's private investments, sponsorships, or donations have decreased as a result of rescheduling or canceling this project. So did you have any other funders or any other pledge support that were withdrawn due to the cancellation of your project. We would like to have an idea of how much money from the private sector you were unable to secure just due to the effects of this pandemic. Again, please provide your best estimate, and if not applicable, you can leave this blank. The last question is optional. It's just a narrative where you can provide some more information about how the pandemic has impacted your organization. Please, if you have any stories to share, any additional information that was not provided in the questions above, then you can put that in this narrative field. You can include information such as an impact to your employment of your organization, any effects on contracted services. Did you have to conduct furloughs, layoffs, or did you have to cancel any contracts that you had in place? Again, this is a place for us to gather the impact of the pandemic on the field. And from this information, we can better help shape how we move the sector forward and what resources and other initiatives we can put in place to support you and the arts industry. And that concludes our form and our impact form there. So in summary, we talked about our grant programs and the revisions made. There was a 1-to-1 cash match requirement that we have shifted to a 50% in kind, 50% cash match requirement. There was a revision to the eligible expenses, so you may now utilize your funds to support online virtual programming. And we also talked about the COVID-19 impact form, where you can report the impact that the pandemic has had on your OAC funded programs. One additional note for final report submissions. Since we are implementing a new budget and a new revision over the budget with the 50% cash match, there will be a slight delay in final report processing. So as you log in to work on your final reports, please take a note on the budget and see if something doesn't line up or if there are any issues. Where here in the office, the Oklahoma Arts Council staff is working to make these revisions. But if you come into any complications with the budget, please let us know. We'll work together to resolve the issue. As Amber mentioned earlier, we all are working on some additional avenues to support your work and provide more resources for the field as we navigate and work through this together. So if you have any questions about managing your grant award, please don't hesitate to reach out and contact me, Heidi, or the rest of our Oklahoma Arts Council staff. You can always send us an email or give us a phone call. We're always here to help. Thank you again for all of the incredible work that you do. And please know that we are always here to support you, your work, and your community. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Thomas, again. So quickly, Amber mentioned earlier that I was just going to share with you some information about a resource page that we put together. First, I do want to thank everybody for being here and for listening or receiving our emails and making sure that this was a priority for you. And we certainly hope that this information is going to be extremely valuable to you. Part of what we want to do as in our service to the state and to the state's arts and cultural sector is to be a clearinghouse for information. And so one of the things that we have undertaken is to activate our Oklahoma Arts Emergency resource page on our website. This is a page that we've used in the past with regard to or following tornadoes and weather-related incidents and funding issues and things like that. It's been updated, obviously, with specific information relative to the COVID-19 pandemic. And so I'll paste a link into the chat box here so everyone can see if you're interested in clicking on it. The resource page is a list that we'll continue to update. And so do check back periodically. There are almost 60 different resources now, ranging, and this is from national, local resources, government resources, as well as foundations and various nonprofits nationwide. And it includes a variety of resources for artists across all disciplines, arts organizations, and more. And so, again, this is a great tool that we hope through which you'll be able to find and access resources. Most of this is very specifically related to resources that are now being made available specifically for the pandemic. Everything from the League of American Orchestras to the Jazz Foundation of America, Billboard, Capacity Interactive. There's a range of resources there. So if you have some time and can scan through that list, we hope that you can take advantage of that, and we will continue to add to that, especially as we continue to have dialogue with statewide arts and cultural leaders and leaders from the nonprofit and philanthropic sectors. So again, we're here as a resource for you. However we can help from a communication standpoint, we'll stay committed to this as we shift to meet needs amid the pandemic. Again, thank you for being here, and I will be following up in the next few days with an email to you with a lot of the information that's being presented here today. And so again, be on the lookout for that email. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Joel. So for anyone that joined us a little bit late on the call, just getting down on the agenda here, we've set aside this time in addition to providing you with agency-wide updates and updates on our grant making. We also just wanted to have an opportunity to bring all of you together and have a space for you to share updates from your organizations, as well as how you all might be responding in your communities and changing and shifting your programming. So this is just an opportunity for discussion and a forum for those of you participating to share your strategies, innovation, ideas for supporting your community during the pandemic. In a few moments, Thomas is going to work his magic. Thank you all for your patience as we're also learning Zoom in the past few weeks, but he's going to divide us into breakout rooms. So sorry, you know, as arts educators, we get all lively in our conversation. Thanks for waiting on us.
Okay. So next, I thought maybe, Chandra, were we thinking that we might be able to provide a platform for any questions since we are running ahead of schedule, or?
Yeah, I think that's what we were talking about, just since we do have this extra time, if we want to just open it up, if anyone has any questions for us, if there's any additional information we can provide, or if there's any information you want to share with this larger group. I'm not sure how we want to facilitate that in terms of the muting and unmuting. Heidi, are you?
So everyone, if you open up your, if you're looking at your Zoom and you're looking at your participants list, you should see an option where you can raise your hand. That's when you hover over your name and there's a more button. If you click on more, there should be the raise hand option. I believe that's where it's located. So if you have a question, you can raise your hand and we can unmute you so you can ask your question, or you can type your question in your chat, the chat box, and then Heidi Costello will read out your question for us to answer. All right, we have no questions so far. Someone had a great question earlier. The question was, regarding the COVID-19 impacts form, it was, will this form be replacing the final reports? So the answer is no, this COVID-19 impacts form, that report is a separate way for us to keep track of your existing grant award, where it is in the process, and if any changes need to be made. You will still need to complete a separate final report once your project occurs and you need to report that information in order for us to start the payment process. So these are two complete different forms to complete.
Okay, thank you.
And
You're welcome.
I'd just like to reiterate that the reason why we're asking for this form is so we can have this information. But I'd also like to really be able to use some of this data that you're providing us in case making with the legislature as they're talking about potential cuts, or they're asking us how this pandemic is impacting organizations providing arts education and arts access statewide. It gives me real data rather than just assumptions of what's happening. So I realize all of this is extra work, but please know that it's not just going to sit on a shelf. I'm going to be culling through it and trying to take the data and use it as a way to try to make some, I guess, some serious case making in order to provide data to policymakers so we can try to strive and get as many resources we can out back to you.
Thomas, we had a question from Michelle Molar.
All right, Michelle, can you read the question, Heidi?
I didn't type it in there. Do you want me to type it in there?
Oh no, it's fine. You can ask it, Michelle.
I just unmuted myself. Sorry. Well, I asked this to Heidi, and she answered it kind of. I just so we have a project that was going to happen in June, and we are going to postpone it. And
no, they're still on this.
So if we take our 20 funding to pay for administrative and artist fees for the rehearsal time that has been incurred in 20, if this goes on and it ends up replacing our FY21 original concert, yes, FY21 original concert, will we be eligible to use FY21 funding for that, or does the 20 project close that book?
That's a great question, Michelle. Now, that's something that we will have to look into, since right now, the way we're structured, we operate on the state's fiscal year as well as a fiscal year that we work with the National Endowment for the Arts. So that's a specific special case where I think if you send me an email, I will take a note of that, and then we'll run and get some answers to see what kind of avenues we can pursue. Again, a great question that a lot of organizations probably have as well. Just restating what Michelle just said, what happens if you're wanting to reschedule a fiscal year 20 project and move it into fiscal year 21? What happens with that grant fund, and will it transfer over? And the answer was, we'll look into it. So if that is the case, then please let me know by an email. If it's official and that's what you're doing, please complete the COVID-19 impact survey and have that information in there for your project, and we'll definitely follow up with you on that. I think Angela Carter from Tulsa had a question as well.
Yeah, thanks. This might be email you separately too, but just in case other people had this question and it saves you some emailing. What box do we check on the impact report if our project is mostly done?
If your project is mostly done, so you would check that you're that it's let me see here. So it's currently in process, and that's a great question. We might add the option that your project is in place, and so if a little bit is modified, then that's something we'll look into as well.
Okay.
We'll add that option on the form for you.
Yay, thanks.
No problem. All right, so we have any other questions? And I'm going to make a note of that too, just so that we follow up.
I have a question for Amber. Suzanne Bowles asked, does the current stimulus bill just cover fiscal year 2020? Would number 4 being discussed in Congress now be for fiscal year 2021?
Great question. So the way that it's working is we would receive the funds in fiscal year 2020. We're supposed to be getting the funds as early as April 30th. We will expedite to spend these funds in fiscal year 2020, but I still have to take it before the board. There may be some payments that would go out in fiscal year 2021. There's going to be more flexibility from the National Endowment of when those funds can be expended. And I'm trying to get more information on what the reporting that will be required. So as we get this information, I'm so sorry that it's a little nebulous. If there is a stimulus number 4 and there are additional funds, yes, most likely I would see that those funds would not be distributed until 2021. I'm going to have a conversation with the 56 state agency directors from the states and jurisdictions next week, and I will be asking that exact same question. But my gut instinct tells me that those would most likely come next year, but it's to be seen.
And Mabel Wallace, did you have a question?
Yes, my question was, I noticed we had a survey that we needed to fill out. Do we have to fill it out today, or are you going to send it by email later on?
It'll be sent out later.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right, there's some private message or private questions here that I'll let's see, sent to me that I will read out. How does the computer accommodate for more than one COVID impacts report? So we do ask that you submit a separate impacts report for each project that's affected. That way we can specifically address each modification or each change to the project. And so no information should be crossing different projects within the same form.
I also have a question from Corey Lightfoot. Is there a timeline for funding decisions for fiscal year 21?
That's a great question, Tori. So right now we're actually in the middle of our fiscal year 21 grant review, where we have community grant reviewers from across the state convening, reading all of the wonderful applications that you all are submitting and talking about its merits and bringing forth funding recommendations to our council members. So we haven't discussed yet what is the plan to move forward. So we have in place specific plans that we are will be addressing these grant awards. So we know that a lot of your programs are being impacted by the pandemic, and it may have been canceled. So we're still working on an answer to that, and we're reviewing your grant applications as they were submitted, and we will have an update for you in a few weeks.
That sounds good. Thank you.
I'd like to ask you, Tori, is there something based in the current criteria that we've kind of outlined where we're trying to be a little bit more flexible, knowing that you're going to have less money probably coming in from revenue sources like ticket sales and potential, sponsorships, et cetera, and trying to give some freedom to work in the virtual platform space? Are there things that we have not addressed that you or anyone else on the call would like to bring to our attention for fiscal year 2021, because we're still trying to be responsive? Are there things that we haven't thought of that you're navigating?
Well, I don't know that there are anything we haven't covered, but I'm thinking that we don't know the timeline of how much interaction we're going to be able to do in, say, in July, in August, there's a lot of uncertainty as far as how this is going to all play out. And so it could impact activities, well into the future as well. So I guess we don't know how to address, nobody knows really how to address that right now. So I don't know.
That's a great point.
All right, we have a question from Emily. She's asking if they're postponing for fiscal year 20, must you complete this fiscal year? The event is a children's fine arts camp, typically in 2 weeks. Emily, do you mind unmuting and asking the question again?
Okay, so I am in charge of an arts camp, and it is visual arts. music, theater, and dance, typically held for 2 weeks in June on a university campus here in Chickasha. And our campus, they decided Monday that they were closing for the summer. They're doing online classes for the entire summer. And so the campus will be closed. So I guess my main thing is, if we postpone, do we need to complete our event this year, like before January 21 to, receive the grant money?
Yes, that's a great question, Emily. So, with the form, the COVID-19 impacts form, that's where you would indicate that it sounds like if your program will be occurring and ending before June 30th or not. So, if it occurs beyond June 30th and it flows into the next fiscal year, that means that it's a fiscal year 21 event. So you would need to select that cancellation box right there. Does that answer your question?
I think so, yes.
All right.
I have another question.
Yes, Mabel.
Oh, Thomas, since we had to cancel the play that we had planned to do in May, when we fill out our report, we've already had started working on the play. So how would we deal with that? Did you give me some help on that?
Yes. So Mabel, I think what you're referring to is so you had a production that you were going to put in place, and you already started some work on it, but in the middle of the planning and the rehearsals, the pandemic happened, and then you had to cut it short, so the performance is no longer happening.
Right.
Is that right? All right. So in this case, then yes, you can. There are still some expenses that you can claim as part of your grant. If you complete the COVID-19 impact report, there's an option there that says that your program is canceled and you will not be rescheduling the program. So what you can do, however, is complete a final report, and you can still claim expenses that you have incurred up to the day of the cancellation. So in your case, Mabel, you may have hired a director and hired some creative team to put together your production. Your actors may have met to rehearse and read their lines. So those are other expenses that have been rendered. You may have already put in some work for marketing and paid someone to come up with posters. So any expenses that you've already incurred for your project, you can still claim and submit as part of your final report.
All right, thank you.
No problem. Yes. So as long as there are services that were delivered, then you can still claim that as part of your grant, even if you had to cancel the production or the show at the end.
So the match would have to be 50%?
Yes. So that's where the match will really help in this case, the revised match. So your match just needs to be 50% cash, but the other 50%, that could be a combination of, it could be all in kind, or it could be a little bit of in kind and a little bit of other kinds of revenue.
All right, thank you.
Thomas,
You're welcome, Mabel.
Question from Laura Calvary.
Yes.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi, Laura.
Hi there. Okay, I just need to ask this question so I can tell my board that I asked it, because they keep calling me and asking me this. If we have to cancel one or two of our programs this fiscal year, is that going to put us in danger of losing any future? Because we couldn't complete this one.
I think you're freezing up a little, Laura, but I think your question was if you're canceling some programs in response to the pandemic, would that affect your future funding opportunities? No, that will not affect your future funding opportunities. We recognize that this is just out of everyone's control, so it will not impact your future funding opportunities there.
Thank you.
And then we had a question from Jeremy Blackwood that he posted. Jeremy, would you like to read that, or would you like me to read it?
Sure, I can read it, or I can just ask it. Sure. So Thomas, in our session, I had asked the question, 2 of 3 performances that were earmarked to use OAC funding on our campus were canceled. One group offered to come back next season. The other group had already incurred some expense for flights and that sort of thing. And they offered to do a virtual concert. Since the university stated that our events were on campus were canceled because of access to Performance Hall, does that pose a problem in the criteria in the rules to offer a virtual performance, since the university stated that the event was canceled, and now we have a group who is willing to offer a virtual performance this fiscal year?
That's a great question, Jeremy. There's a lot of gray area in that.
Exactly.
Let's see here. So, so just looking at the project that's happening, you're still having the concert. You're transitioning the space from being in person into a virtual area, and I'm sure you'll be promoting that through online marketing, just like you would for your other programs too. So it sounds like your project is still going on. You just modified that to fit the virtual space. Right now, I don't see any issue with that. Amber, did you have anything to?
I think that obviously we'd like to look at it on a case-by-case basis, and that's what this form is for, so it gives us a sense.
Okay.
Go ahead, and if you don't mind going ahead and filling out the form. I just want to make it, I just want to reiterate what Thomas has said, and when we revise these grant criteria, we are going to do everything within our capacity to get you the funds that you have expended to date, because we know that what we're trying to do is to figure out how to maximize getting things to you for the expenditures that you've had. And then if you're transforming and moving within a virtual space, we can add those expenditures on. But filling out this form will help us just to get as much information, so that way we can work with you and have our staff work one-on-one to help you craft the final reporting and whatnot, so that we can maximize getting the funds to you while still staying within the parameters of us staying within the NEA and our state parameters of what we're trying to do. We're trying to really walk a fine line and keep you all afloat and us too. So if you'll just fill out those forms, each of these are so unique, we'll tackle them one-on-one on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you.
All right. We had, let's see here. Okay, we got your question, Jeremy, that you typed out. Does anyone else have any other questions regarding their managing their grant award, or other work that Oklahoma Arts Council is doing to navigate this space?
Thank you.
All right, so I'll hand it back over to Amber for our closing.
Well, I just want to thank all of you for the time today. I know you carved out 2 hours to not only hear all the updates we were trying to give you, but share space with each other. We'll continue to try to get as much information out to you. Forgive us because it's nebulous. We are also kind of driving the car on the country road without headlights. I know all of you are doing the same. You're trying to figure out how to drive and move forward, but you can't see too far ahead, and it's really hard. So please just know that our team is here for the moral support, for resources. We're going to navigate and try to get as many financial dollars out to you. And we just want you to know that we're here as your community. We believe in what you're doing. Your innovation is incredible. We're watching what you're trying to do and navigate. And so we just want to commend you for that, your resilience and your spirit, but also we hope you take care of yourselves as well. And let's take care of each other. Please just have the lines of communication open to us. We don't want to be punitive. We do not want this pandemic to come across as a punitive act. From our agency standpoint, we're going to try to do whatever we can within our ability to get you what you need to move forward and to navigate this incredibly difficult space. So don't have fear to tell us what's going on. We're trying to figure out what to do with our own programs in terms of, do we keep events on, et cetera. We're navigating similar spaces, and it's really hard. So I know I'm keeping you between you and your cocktail. It's Friday afternoon. So I will be short. Thank you again for your time. Please reach out to us for anything that you might need. No small, no question is too small. No ask is too big. We'll just do whatever we can to support you in this work. And thank you for what you're doing, because we're nurturing people's souls when everybody's isolated. So I think the arts, if our work wasn't ever, maybe we always know our work is really important, but now in this time, the connectivity and sense of community is so clearly important in our state. So thank you.